Okay, team. So, barbell recording. Now, what we've got, as I said last week, we obviously can't be in the gym progressing all the lifts the way we want to, putting more weight on the bar, increasing our lifts that way. Okay, but what we can do, use this time to work on things like mobility and our efficiency in those lifts that will help us in the long run when we get back to the gym, back to those weights. Okay, so last week we focused on our snatch pull. This week we're going to focus on our overhead squat. But as we did last week, before we go into our lift, what we're going to do is go through a little mobility protocol, get you all moving, get the body loosened off, and allow you to move through a little fuller range of motion there. Okay? Now, main goal is you guys get these exercises and then can move away and use them in your own training or when we get back to the gym. Okay? So make sure you understand each one, make sure you get a good feel for each one, and then you can then put it into your own training. Okay? Now, for our first one, we're going to focus on our ankles first. We're then going to move to our hips, and then we'll finish off with those shoulders, then go into our overhead squat. Okay? Now, all we're going to do to start with is a little mobility test. Okay? Great one, easy to retest. All you need is a wall or a door. Okay? So you're going to set up in front of that wall or door. I'm just going to use a bench for this one. Okay? And then from your hands and knees, you're going to bring one knuckle in contact with the floor. One side of the hand is going to be in contact with the wall or door, whatever you're using. Okay. From there, you're then going to bring one foot in contact with the other side of the hand. Okay. And then from there, your goal is to get your knee as far over your toe as you can. Okay. So knee's going to track straight over the toe. You're trying to keep your full foot in contact with the floor, so don't let that heel come off. And then your ultimate goal is to get your knee to touch the wall or door, whatever you're using. Okay. If that's too easy, great. You're going to come a thumb and knuckles width away from the wall. Same again, bring that foot in contact with the hand. And then press your knee over your toe, keep that full foot down, get as much range through that ankle as you can, okay? We'll test the dorsiflexion there. If that's super tough, you're not even getting close to the wall, that's fine. We're going to go through a couple of drills just now that will help that, okay? Nice specific transfer as well over to that squat. Everything about what we're doing as we squat down, we're testing that ankle range of motion as well, okay? So first one, all we're going to do is from a kneeling position, you will need your bar, mop handle, whatever you're going to use. And then from hands and knees, one foot is going to come in contact with that bar, so just on top there. You can use your hands to support you on the floor if you need to, but we're going to start up at one side of the foot. You're then going to apply slight pressure and then roll your foot nice and steady over whatever object you're using. Okay? Again, just a slight pressure to start with. Once you reach your heel, you can then rock back. Your goal here is to almost feel a slight cracking, popping sensation in the foot. That's what you're looking for. Okay, just loosen off the fascia in the bottom of the foot. That's going to help to loosen off all the way through the ankle, through the calf, and then through the foot as well. Okay, so what we're going for there is 30 seconds, nice and steady rolling out. As you move through those 30 seconds, you can then increase that resistance, put a little more pressure on your knee there. Okay, make sure you keep your foot moving, look for any sort of tight points, focus there, and then you can then move on. Okay, just make sure you keep that foot moving, keep it rolling out. So 30 seconds on one side, 30 seconds on the other, and you're going to do that twice. Okay, up to you how long you rest between those 30-second periods. Now, once we're through that one, next one is going to be from hands and knees again. You're going to bring one foot in front of the other, very similar to the position we had in that first mobility test. And then all you're doing is pressure your knee over your toe again. This time you're going to let your heel just come about an inch off the floor. And then again, we're trying to get as much range through the ankle as we can. Okay, you're going to find that stretch, find that sting point. Should be feeling this through the back of the ankle, up through the side of the calf as well. And then you can then ease off and then go back on. Okay, so you're going to do that 5 times. So stretching over, find that sting point, hold for a second, and then ease back. Okay, for this one, remember you can let that heel come off the floor just a couple inches there. Okay, so 5 reps per side, and then you can then rest. We're going to do that twice as well. Okay, this one's nice and specific, again, to that mobility test that we did first off, hitting that same position, and then again, they all transfer back to that squat position. Okay, if you're finding that too easy and not quite feeling a good enough stretch, what you can do is grab any weighted object around the house, so dumbbell, kettlebell, backpack, book, whatever you've got. Same position again, you're just going to pop that weight on top of your knee, and then as we press over, that's going to help apply a little more pressure, force that knee a little bit further over the toe. Okay? Same again, find that stretch, pause for seconds, and then come back off. Okay? So, if you're through your first set of that and you don't have a weight, or that weight's not quite doing it for you, what we can do is then come over to a raised surface, making this a little bit harder again. You're going to put one foot on top of that box. You're then going to press your knee over your toe again. If you can, you're going to grab hold of that bench and pull yourself down. Okay, so whatever object you're using, grab hold, pull yourself down. That's going to help apply a little more pressure, push that knee even further over the toe. Okay, so if that first test from the floor was feeling good, your first 5 reps felt good, you can then move over to that raised surface, make it a little bit harder. Okay, same again, if we're going for that one, 5 reps, find that sting point, and then you can ease off, do that on each side. Okay. Now, once we're through that, we're then going to go back into our mobility test that we started with, okay? If you're through those 2 sets on each one, so our 3 different exercises there, you should notice a difference in the range of that ankle, okay? Should be feeling a little bit looser. You're going to set up again. So whether you started thumb and knuckle width away, or you just went for a knuckle width, get that hand contact with the floor, up against the wall, and then bring your foot to the other side of the hand there, okay? You're then going to press over. Ideally, we want to see an increased range of motion there. Get that knee a little bit further over the toe. Ankle should be feeling a little looser. Okay? So retest that on each side for those tests. Just find that sting point, get as far as you can into that stretch, and then ease off. You can then swap sides from there. Okay? So that's us done with the ankles there. Now, great ones to throw in, as I say before, things like your squat session. If you know it's going to impact that squat session negatively, so if it's quite strenuous for you, and you know it's going to carry over into that squat session, chances are your legs will be feeling a little bit sore, calves will be feeling a little bit sore. I'd recommend doing it afterwards, okay? So all the way through this, find ones that work for you and that are relatively easy to do. You can chuck those in before, and then anything that's going to negatively affect that squat session, you can do it afterwards, okay? So anything that's quite strenuous for you just now, okay? Now, next one, moving on to our hips. All we're going to do here is come down into our lunge stance, okay? So looking for a nice vertical shin on that front leg, I'm going to stretch off those hip flexors. Okay, so if ever in a squat you felt tension or tightness through the front of your hips there, chances are it's a little bit too tight in those hip flexors there. Okay, so once we're in that lunge stance, nice vertical shin, chest is tall, you're going to let your hips sink forward and down. Okay, now notice the angle of my chest doesn't change, trunk still tall, and then my hips sink forward and down. That's where you should feel that stretch to the back leg. Okay, if you feel a little bit in the groin in the front leg as well, that's fine. Okay, now you're going to hold this one for 15 seconds, trying to force your hips as far down as you can. Once you're through the first 15 seconds, you're then going to rotate away from your back leg. Okay, so my right leg is back, I'm going to rotate to the left. If your left leg is back, you're going to rotate to the right. Okay, again, chest is going to stay tall, keep driving those hips down, and then we're going to twist away. Your ultimate goal is to reach across and touch that back heel. Okay, so rotate away from that back leg if you can. Bonus points to anyone who can do this. Rotate all the way around, touch that back heel, and then once we find that stretch, or as far as you can get around, you're then going to hold for 15 seconds again. Okay, keep forcing those hips down, keep that chest tall. We're then going to return back to that lunge. Next one, we're going to go for lateral flexion. So my right leg's back, my right arm is going to reach up and over my head. I'm going to reach as far over as I can. Find that stretch. Keep forcing those hips down and forward. And then hold that for 15 seconds again. Ideally for this one, we should be feeling that stretch through the hip, through the side, and then a little bit through the lat as well. Okay? Now, last one, we're going to put them all together. So we're going to bring one hand up and over. You're then going to rotate away, try to touch that back foot, and put both those stretches together. Okay? You should be feeling this, again, all the way through that hip, through the side, through the lat, as we rotate around. Okay? Hold that one 15 seconds. You can then rest up. No doubt you will need to. And then you can then swap sides. Okay? So that is our hip flexors done. We're going for 15 seconds per stage. So just find your way into that stretch first. Hold for 15 seconds. Then rotate away from that back leg. Hold for 15. Then you can then reach over with that arm. Hold for 15. And then put them both together. Hold for 15 seconds again. Okay? You're going to do that on each leg twice. Okay? Now, next one, we're going to go for our 90-90 hip rotations. So again, nice and specific to our squat. You're going to set up on the floor, and then you're just bringing those feet just outside hip width, slight flex in those knees there. Okay? So again, very similar to your squat stance. Now, from there, I'm then going to rotate over. Now, I'm getting both my knees down to the floor. Ideally, my hips are going to stay in contact with the floor as I do this. Okay? So I'm going to rotate around. Now, here, I'm looking for 90-degree angles through my legs. Okay? So straight line from my hip, through my quad, through my knee, and then from my knee, through my shin. Okay, that's going to happen on both legs Again, if we can, drive both hips down to the floor. Okay, chest is tall. I'm then going to reverse that, rotate over to the other side there. Okay, again, if we can, keep those right angles through the leg. If you need to make a slight correction, you can do there. Keep that chest tall, and then you can then rotate back. Okay, you've got 20 of those to do. So keeping that chest tall, you can break these up however you need to. 1 rep being from one side, rotating over. Okay, 20 of those. Now, if that's too easy, what you can do is grab a weighted object, whatever you use for our dorsiflexion stretch. You're just going to hold that out in front of you. And then as you rotate over, keep the object out in front of you. That's going to keep your chest tall, force your hips down. You're then going to rotate over and then finish with those hips through. Okay? You'll feel those glutes light up a little bit more, and then you can then rock back and switch sides. Okay? So make that one a little bit harder if you need to. You've got 20 reps, and you're going to do that twice. Okay? Main focus there, keeping that chest tall, keep those 90-degree angles through the legs, and then force both those hips down in contact with the floor. Okay? So once you're through 20 reps twice, we're then going to go for our last one, which is going to be a goblet squat hold. Okay, so pretty intense one to finish off, but we have stretched off those ankles. They should be nice and mobile, same as with the hips. Okay, so getting yourself set in your squat stance. Now, if we can, we're going to grab a weighted object, again, whatever you've got, dumbbell, kettlebell, book, whatever you can find around the house. You're going to get yourself set in your squat stance. Okay, so feet ideally are going to be underneath hips, toes pointed slightly out. If you know you need to bring your feet slightly wider to get down to that full depth squat, you can do for just now. Okay? Now I'm then going to send that weight out in front of me. Okay? Slight flex in my arms. No need to extend. We're not taxing those shoulders. Just a slight flex in those arms. Okay? Now from there, I'm going to think about corkscrewing the floor. So trying to twist that floor apart. That's going to light up my glutes. And I can then send my hips back and down, keep my full foot in contact with the floor. Chest stays tall. Knees drive out. Sitting down to that full depth squat. Okay? Now you'll feel that weight makes it a little bit easier to send your hips back and keep your chest tall. Use it as a little bit of a counterbalance there. Okay? Now goal here is we're going to make up 2 minutes in the bottom of that squat. Okay? Do it however you need to. Ideally, we're going to do that in 2 or 3 big holds. You're trying to force yourself into that squat, but make sure that chest stays tall and we don't lose our form there. Okay? As soon as you feel yourself relax into that squat, any round in the back or potentially knees caving in, just stand up, shake out your legs, and go for another hold when you feel ready. Okay? So make up those 2 minutes in the bottom of the squat. As soon as you stand up, pause your timer, and then when you're ready to go, sit back down to that squat and start it again. Okay? So make it up 2 minutes there. If that's too much, which it may well be, you're going to set up in front of a door or doorway. Okay? Now, this is going to be my doorway here. Get yourself set in that squat stance again. Hips are going to go back and down. You're going to sit as low as you feel comfortable going. And then you're then going to have both hands on a door or doorway and just use that for a little bit of support. Okay, so if you feel too much getting pulled into your toes or anything like that, use that rope or use the wall door as a little bit of an aid to keep that chest tall, allow you to sit into that squat a little bit longer. Okay? So that's the last one for our hips. Now, we're then going to move on to our shoulders. So just going for SOTS press today. Last week was a little more focused on the shoulders and T-spine. Okay? So going for our SOTS press. Now, using whatever object you have. So mop handle, broom, PVC, whatever you can find. We're then going to go for a SOTS press. Okay? So feet again set in our squat stance again, just as we did for our goblet squat. You're then going to bring your hands nice and wide to start with. Okay? We're going to go for a couple pass-throughs. Just keep a full grip on that bar. Cycle around, keeping those arms straight and circling back. Okay? If that felt good, work your hands in a little bit closer. Go for a couple more. And then keep working your hands in until whatever object you're using sits in at your hip crease. Okay? You'll notice in at your hip crease if you can bring one knee up and that bar shouldn't move. Okay? Off balance there. One knee up, bar should not move. Okay? If that's too close to get that bar in your hip crease, that's fine for just now. Okay, so pop those hands a little wider. Again, ideally, we're able to do that full pass-through with our chosen grip. Okay? Now, from there, once we found our hand width, we're then going to pop whatever object we're using onto the back of our neck. Okay? So just sat in between the traps and the shoulders there, you should find a little bit of groove. That bar should sit nicely in there. Okay? We're then going to get ourselves set back in that squat stance. You're going to think about tucking your elbows underneath that bar, core is tight, and then squeeze my glutes. Okay, so before you go for each rep, you're going to close the gap between your rib cage and your hip, brace that core, squeeze the glutes, bring your elbows underneath that bar. Okay, from there, I'm then going to think about driving that bar straight up through the ceiling. Okay, nothing changes in lying my back, core is still tight. I don't run my back at all through this. I'm going to drive that bar straight up and finish with it over the crown of my head. Okay, so seeing there, drive that bar straight up, finish with it over the crown of your head, and then come back down to the start. Okay, now as I drive that bar, all I'm thinking about doing is pressing my upper back through the ceiling. Okay, now this isn't a shrug up. All I'm trying to do is create almost like a shelf through my shoulders there. Okay, so drive that bar up, keep the traps down. In that overhead position with over the crown of your head, you should be able to shrug up those shoulders if you need to. Okay, that'll just tell you if you're pressing up through your traps or not. Okay, so try not to shrug up. You're going to drive upper back through the ceiling and then press that bar up there. Okay, you've got 5 reps to do to start with. Again, before you go for each one rep at a time, tuck those elbows underneath the bar, drive the bar up over the crown of your head, and then back to the start. Okay, if you can, I would do this in front of a mirror or in front of a camera, just so you can see where that bar is. Again, ideally, it's going to move straight up and down, finish with it over your crown of your head. Okay, the reason why we want the bar finishing over the crown of your head, that's going to be over your center of mass. Okay, so if you think about squatting there, that weight's going to be driving down through those shoulders, through the hips, and then through your heel. Okay, through your heel or middle of the foot. Okay, so get that bar over the crown of your head, over your center of mass. That's going to be where you're most stable for things like a squat or seating the bar in the snatch. Okay, so first one, once we're through our 5 reps of just pressing that bar up and down, we're then going to go for a slight flex in our hips and in our knees. Okay, so send those hips back. You're in that squat stance, slight flex your knees, and then you're then going to go for 5 reps again. Okay, again, ideally that bar is moving straight up and down. Finish with it over the crown of your head. Keep those elbows tucked underneath the bar. Okay, chest stays tall, weight stays in the heels. All the points from our goblet squat apply to this one as well. Okay, if that felt good through those 5 reps, you're then going to go a little bit lower down. Okay, so we've gone through that slight flex. We're now going to sit just about parallel there. Okay, again, elbows are tucked underneath. Get that chest up. Going for your 5 reps there. Finish with that bar of the crown of your head. Take that nice and steady. The lower we go through these squats, chances are you'll feel a bit more of a pull on those shoulders and through the chest. Okay? Take that nice and steady. Control those 5 reps. Again, if you can, sitting just about parallel there. Go for your 5. Then you can stand tall and relax. Okay? If that felt good, great. We're going to progress onto our final one, which is that full socks press. If not, just go for whatever variation felt good for you. Okay? Whether it's standing, whether it's just a slight flex to your knee, that's fine. As we move through those weeks, we'll progress down a little bit lower into that socks press. Okay? So for that last one, we're sitting hips back and down, sitting down into that full depth squat, getting that chest tall, and then from there, going for 5 socks press, driving that bar up, make sure those elbows stay tucked underneath that PVC. Okay? Now you'll know if you've got poor range in your hips or in your ankles, if when you sit down to that squat, you're trying to press from there. Okay, so if you've had to hinge over too much, it's because you can't sit all the way down. Maybe it's because you can't quite send your knees far enough over your toes, or because you can't send your hips far enough back. Okay, that's going to make this whole lot harder. If that's the case for you, just go for a comfortable height that allows you to keep your chest tall, and then just go for your presses there. Okay, don't push it too much. Our main goal is being able to keep those elbows underneath that bar rather than forcing ourselves too low into a squat for just now. Okay, so you've got 5 reps per stage. Find a stage that works for you. You're then going to do 2 sets of 5 in whatever height that is. Okay, so say here is tough for me. I'm going to go for 5 reps, rest for as long as you need, and then go for that again. Okay, so that is our mobility protocol done. Again, main goal here is to give you awesome tools that you can chuck in before your sessions, whether it's at home or when you get back into the gym. Okay, find ones that work for you. You'll be able to tell if potentially your ankles are a little bit stiff, your hips are a little bit stiff, or it's maybe through your shoulders. Just find drills that work for you and then remember them and then try put them into that routine. Okay, now next thing we're going to focus on just for the last little bit is going to be our overhead squat. Okay, so we covered most of those points through that socks press, why it's a great exercise to throw in before things like a snatch or through that overhead squat. but we're going to talk through that again. Okay, so hands are still in that same weight that we had for our squat press. Okay, nice and wide to start with. Go for those pass-throughs. You're going to try and work your hands in nice and close so that bar is in at your hip crease. Okay, again, if you need to go slightly wider forwards now, you can do. Okay, you're then going to get yourself set in that squat stance. Now, if I can, my feet are going to be underneath my hips. If I need to go slightly wider for that overhead squat forward just now, you can do as well. Okay, I'm then going to drive that bar up over my head. Okay, just as we did for our squat press there. Now, again, we shouldn't be shrugging up with those shoulders. All I'm doing there is creating instability. Okay, drive my upper back through the ceiling. Keep those traps down. Again, ideally, we should be able to shrug up if we need to. Okay, obviously, we don't want to. Now, once I'm in that solid position, I'm then going to think about sending my hips back and down. Okay, now before I do that, I'm going to make sure my big toe, pinky toe, and heel are all three in contact with the floor. Okay, so although my weight is towards my heels, I'm not bringing those toes off the floor and then trying to squat down from there. Okay, give yourself that base to work from, get a solid platform, get those toes down, weight slightly more towards my heels, but I'm driving through the whole of my foot. Okay? Now, when I'm ready, hips are going to go back and down. Arms stay extended. There should be no flex in my elbows here. I'm then going to send my bum back towards the wall. As I do that, bend at those knees. Keep driving the knees out. Keep that chest tall. We're going to sit as low as we can. Okay? Now, again, you're only sitting as low as you can before we start to see that big hinge of the hips and that chest drop. Okay? Again, if that's just down to there, that's fine. Get to that position, hold it for a second, and then you can then stand up. Okay, if you can sit all the way down, just make sure that we keep the same angle of the back all the way through that squat. Okay, so drive that bar up, chest stays tall. I'm not looking for any sort of butt wink in the bottom of that squat. Okay, if you see that start to show, bring yourself up a couple inches, and then you can then stand. Okay, now we're going to try and make up 5 reps of our squat. But as we do that, we're going to throw in a little bit of a tempo. Okay, so as I send my hips back and down, I'm going to allow myself 4 seconds to reach the full depth that I can. Okay, so if I'm going down to that full depth squat, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, reach that full depth, hold for 2 seconds, and then I can then stand. Okay, all that's going to do is force you to keep that good position, allow you a little more time to feel what a good overhead squat should feel like. And then again, make sure that bar stays over the crown of your head, control all the way through those 4 seconds, nice and steady, and then stand, okay? If you're just going to go slight flex in those hips, again, 4 seconds, so 1, 2, 3, 4. If that's as low as you can get before that chest starts to dip, that's fine. Hold there for 2 seconds, and then stand, okay? As you go through those 5 reps, and we're going to do that on 2 sets, your goal is to progress a little bit lower down to that squat if you can, okay? It's just going to be inch by inch. You'll feel, you can drive your knees out a little bit further, sit a little bit lower down, send your bum back further towards the wall. All these things will just allow you a little bit lower down to that squat. Okay, so 5 reps, stick to that tempo, 4 seconds on the way down, 2 seconds pause, and then you can then stand. And then once you do your first 5 reps, rest as needed, and you're going to do that twice. Okay, again, if you can, set up in front of a camera, set up in front of a mirror. All it's going to do is allow you to see the position you're hitting. If you need to, set up a phone, record yourself, go for those 5 reps, and then you can then rewatch it. Chances are you'll see something slightly wrong, so whether that bar is too far back, too far forward, you're not quite sending your hips far enough back, whatever it may be, have a look for those points, and then as you go into that next set or next couple of reps, you can then correct those as you see fit, okay? So that is our barbell done for today. Any questions, you can drop them in the post that this will go into on the Facebook page. If not, you can bring them to next Tuesday's live session if you can make it, okay?